Today, we're going to talk about something that's very important that can make or break your trading. But at the same time, I see a lot of new traders just completely overlooking this thing. What this thing is risk management. So today, I'm going to talk about exactly how much you should be risking, how you should be handling your trades, and how this is going to vary based on like if you're on an evaluation or an actual funded account. So let's get straight into this. So there's multiple things that factor into your risk management. The first and most obvious is how much are you risking per trade? So like, do you have a fixed amount that you lose per trade? Or like, let's say if you see like an A plus setup, do you risk like a little more on that setup? And then on your regular setups, you risk like a little less? Like, have you predetermined how much you're risking per trade pretty much? But beyond that, once that trade actually starts going into profit, how are you handling that? Are you taking partials? Are you moving your stop loss to break even? Things like that you got to think about. And also you want to think about, do you have like a max daily loss limit where like, let's say if you lose $1,000 in a day, you're just giving up and walking away for the day? Or if let's say you lose like one setup or two setups, is that like what triggers you to walk away for the day and give up? You should have something that's going to trigger you where you're saying, okay, today's not the day, I should take a break and I shouldn't sit here all day and keep giving money back to the market. Because there are certain days where you're just going to take loss after loss, and that's how your risk management plan is going to save you, right? Because you obviously you know you're not going to win every single trade that you take, and that's why your risk management plan is here. No one wins 100% of the time, so no one is above risk management. But now I want to talk about exactly how much you're going to risk at what point, right? So I'm going to give you an exact amount you're going to risk based on what stage you are in your trading and what account size you're trading. So the first step in figuring out how much to risk is looking at your total available drawdown. So let's say you're on a 50K and you have $2,000 of drawdown, right? So from here, I want you to think how many trades you want of like wiggle room, of like how many trades you can lose in a row before you blow this account. So if you've back tested your strategy, you should know how many trades you lose back to back. So let's say like I've tested my strategy over a year and my max like losing streak was 4 trades. So at that point, I could give myself a 5 trade buffer because it's statistically unlikely that I would lose more than 4 trades based on my back testing results. So if you don't have any information like that, me personally, I would just say give yourself 4 to 5 trades of wiggle room. And also, you can put some variation here. So let's say if you're like a trader that's gotten many payouts, you're familiar with passing valuations, this is nothing new to you, and you're just tired of taking valuations. So if you're using the money from payouts in the past to buy this valuation, it's almost like you're reinvesting, so it almost gives you the ability to risk more. So at that point, I do think it's acceptable for you to risk like almost up to half of the total drawdown, right? So risking half of the total drawdown is going to give you 2 trades, but you're going to pass it quick. So you're either going to pass it or you're going to fail it quick. And for many people, they just don't want to waste their time trading valuations. It's understandable. But just because I said that, if you're a beginner, it doesn't mean you should be doing it. I only recommend this for people that have gotten multiple payouts in the past and they're reinvesting that payouts back into themselves. So if you're a new trader with no payouts, please don't risk heavy on evals. That's how you're going to lose a lot of money and dig yourself into a hole it's going to be hard to get out of. But also at the same time, if you're a very new trader, you can also lower your risk, right? So let's say if you buy an eval and you think to yourself, if I blow this eval, it's going to hurt me a lot. I can only afford to buy like 2 evals. Maybe at that point you should lower your risk a little bit. But you also got to keep in mind, a lot of these futures accounts, it's a monthly subscription service. So you don't want to be trading an eval for longer than 1 month because you're going to get rebilled. And at that point, you can just full port it and either pass or fail, and then you could just get a fresh evaluation if that makes sense. Because like let's say if my rebill is tomorrow, right, and I'm $1,000 away from passing, by the end of that day I want to pass or fail because that's almost like a free trade and I could get a fresh account the next day because that rebill would happen for no reason if you don't pass or fail pretty much. So once you actually get to that funded stage, you should be dropping your risk a little bit. There's multiple reasons for that. And the first reason is just it helps with your psychology. Because I feel like on an evaluation account, you really don't care as much. But once you move to that funded account, you can see the same dollar P&L, but you'll just like, it'll affect you more and it might impact your decision making. Because I feel like when you're trading, a lot of non-traders really don't understand this, but seeing those numbers fluctuate in real time can be really an emotional thing that will cloud your judgment. And also, you could have potentially paid an activation fee. So there's just more to lose now. So you've given them potentially more money from that evaluation fee. And on top of that, you actually have this funded account you've worked hard for. And now if you go on a losing streak, instead of just failing an evaluation, now you're actually going to lose a funded account that you've worked hard for. And it could affect your mood and it could make you feel disheartened, right? So on the funded account, you should de-risk a little bit just so it can help your mental state so you can stay as calm as possible on the funded account. And you also don't want to lose what you've worked hard to earn. As for the other things I talked about, such as like moving stop losses to break even, taking partials, those are all going to be very specific to your system and only you can determine that. So like I talked about before with like looking in your back testing and seeing how many like trades you lose back to back on average, or like what's your max losing streak, max total drawdown, right? These are all statistics you should be pulling from your back testing that you know about your strategy, right? So you should know how your strategy performs over time. You should know if you should be taking partials and holding runners, or if you should be taking all out at 1-to-1, right? You should know at what point you should be going break even, because certain systems, they'll benefit from going break even at, like, let's say an internal high or low. And there's certain systems that when you start doing that, you're going to be getting break even a lot of the time, and you're going to take away winners that you could have gotten if you did move your stop to break even. So it's going to be very specific to you. And even the risk management I just talked about before, I know that everyone wants to know, oh, how much did I risk? But it's going to be very specific to you. So it's going to be a combination of how you are doing financially and how your system performs, right? So can you afford to actually lose this challenge? And how many trades does your system lose back to back? So it's a combination of these things, because at the end of the day, I can't tell you how much is best for you to risk in your propfirm account. Only you know the answer to that. And honestly, I know this might sound crazy to say, but you could speak to AI to ask it for advice. You could say like, this is my strategy. I have an X% win rate. This is my average risk reward. I want to know what are the probabilities that I'll lose X trades back to back, right? So you could literally get a percentage of what the chance of you actually passing this evaluation is. I know it seems kind of like far-fetched, but it actually kind of gives me confidence in my trading. I've done it before because I use FX Replay. And also, I'm going to link FX Replay down below. It's my favorite backtesting platform. You can use that link and code 10B272 for 15% off. But when I use FX Replay in my own personal trading, it'll give me all these analytics, right? So it'll do it all for me too. So I'll just trade like I'm trading normally, and I'll look at the analytics later, and I could say, oh, well, if let's say I traded this way, how would this have performed, right? And like it'll show me my average risk reward, and just all these things are just great. So I can actually take that whole spreadsheet though, and I can literally give it to ChatGPT, and I've done this before. I've literally given it my whole spreadsheet, and I've said like, what's my max consecutive like losers and stuff like that. And basically I just ask it a million questions after I've given it all of my statistics. So that's one way you could look at your risk management. But like I said before, at the end of the day, it just comes down to how much you're comfortable risking, if you're comfortable failing the account, and how much money you have to lose pretty much, and a combination of that in your system. So before I wrap this up, I just want to let you know, if you're looking for a good prop firm to trade with, I highly recommend Alpha Futures. I think they are the best prop firm, so I'm going to put a link for them down below, and I also have my own discount code, which is code 10B272. If you use that code, it's going to give you whatever the best current discount is, or if there's no current discount, it's going to give you 10% off. So I highly recommend checking them out. But if you watch this video all the way through, I really hope you enjoyed it. I'd also really appreciate it if you could give me a like, put a comment down below, and subscribe. And I also just hope you have a great day.